Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Ingla Hangarpai with the ASU Small Business Development Center. Welcome to today's webinar, Action Brand Secrets from Near Death to a Multi-Billion-Dollar Brand. We're going to give everyone about 30 seconds to join and get settled. We're excited to have our speaker, Mark Imperial, today. Feel free to say hi in the chat and tell us where you're from and what industry you're in. Thank you for joining us today. This live webinar session is brought to you by the Texas Southwest Small Business Development Center Network. The mission of the Texas Southwest SBDC Network is to foster small business success through confidential, one-on-one, no-cost business advising services and low to no-cost business training events. We are funded in part by the U.S. Small Business Administration and the state of Texas, which allows us to host these training sessions at no cost. I would like to thank all the SBDC centers that are co-hosting this session today. I also want to take a minute and run through some Zoom tips that will make this session run smoothly and will help you get the most of your time out of here today. As this session is conducted over Zoom's webinar function, your video will be turned off as you enter the session and your audio is automatically muted. You can change the view settings by selecting the speaker or the presentation to view one or the other, whichever you prefer. Please utilize the Q&A box on the bottom center of your screen to ask questions. We'll be addressing these questions at the end of today's presentation. You may use the chat function to engage with the speaker and other attendees. This session will also be recorded and made available to view later on demand. A digital copy of the slide deck and additional materials mentioned in today's presentation will be available and sent via email after today's webinar. So now let me introduce today's speaker, Mark Imperial, author and owner of Action Brand Marketing. Thank you for joining us this afternoon. Mark is not your average business expert. He's the branding and marketing whiz who's worked with huge names like Nintendo, Pokémon, and Under Armour. Plus, he's the go-to guy for Dan Kennedy's No BS marketing letter. That's right, the marketing legend himself. Today, Mark's going to show you how to grow your business into a powerhouse brand that everybody loves. So get ready for some serious fun, tons of energy, and lots of aha moments. He's the best-selling author of this Action Brand Marketing and books Grow Business. So without further ado, I would like to hand over today's session to Mark Imperial.
Thanks, Ingla. I appreciate it. And hey, Texas, what's up, party people? I'm super excited to be part of the event today and share with you today. So let me go ahead and share my screen with you, because first and foremost, I promised you copies of my books. So go ahead and hit that QR code or go to getmarksbooks.com and you could download the digital versions of Books Grow Business. And this is Action Brand Marketing, where we're going to be learning from today. So let's get right into it. So this is Action Brand Secrets from Near Death to a Multi-Billion-Dollar Brand. I want to make it clear that regardless of what size enterprise you are, the lesson I'm sharing from this near-death brand to multi-billion-dollar brand is applicable to any size business. And so I want you really to pay attention and learn and take from that lesson. So I want to start by having you visualize something. Imagine this. Your brand is everywhere. Your name is instantly recognized and your message is crystal clear. That means your inbox is overflowing with opportunities. Clients are reaching out to you and media outlets are inviting you to share your story. And event organizers are lining up to put you on their stage. That's really what great branding and messaging is about. Your brand isn't just a logo or a tagline. It is your reputation. It's your aura. That's what I like to call it. It's your magnet and it's your ticket to the next level. Now, in contrast, imagine this. Imagine what happens if you don't prioritize your brand and your marketing stays on the back burner. It just doesn't get done. The calls don't come. The opportunities don't, they just pass you by. Your expertise remains the best kept secret in your industry. I don't want this for you. What future do you want for yourself? By the end of our short time together today, you're going to see why taking the time to dial in your branding and your marketing is the best decision you're going to make for your business. And you're going to walk away knowing a great formula and a blueprint of exactly how to get started on the right path for you. So who's this for? It's for business owners, whether you're new to business or whether you're seasoned. I'm going to show you how to leapfrog to the top of your field. This is also for marketing professionals and marketing nerds, as we call ourselves, who are passionate about staying ahead of the curve. Here's what we're going to cover in 3 parts. And I've got a lot to share, so I'm going to keep going kind of quickly, but I think it's pretty clear. And I'm going to take all the questions that you want and we'll cover them at the end. So type them in as you think of questions, but we'll cover them at the end. Part 1, I'm going to show you why branding fails so you could avoid those traps. In part 2, I'm going to give you the blueprint of the action brand formula to grow your business into a powerhouse brand that everybody loves. And in part 3, you're going to get the action plan. I'm going to show you all the pieces of an ideal branding scenario that's adaptable for your business and show you where to start so you could become that go-to leader in your market. So let me start by getting right into it and giving you my expression that is the theme for the day. And that is, we don't build a brand in order to get a customer. It's the other way around. We actually want to get a customer to build a brand. And at the end of the day, your brand isn't owned by you. Your brand is owned in the mind of your audience and the public. So that's what it means is there are millions and millions of different impressions of what your brand is, depending on who you ask. So that's how we're starting off today. I want to give you a quick snapshot just so you know the context of where I came from. I'm not a new internet cowboy, and I bet a lot of my references here are going to age me a lot. But I spent 25 years in experiential marketing and branding for some of the world's most famous and popular brands. Love brands like Under Armour, Pokémon, and Nintendo. Under Armour, I launched their shoe division in 2006. Pokémon, I hosted Worlds in Hawaii on the Big Island. And for Nintendo, I do things like launches for their product launches. And like Super Smash Brothers Brawl, we did a wonderful tournament around the country for that, to launch that. And on the direct response side, in marketing, verbal branding, this is a totally different world. I worked with the legend in the marketing space, 17 years with Dan Kennedy. And I was certified by him in direct response marketing, which you're going to learn a ton about today. And he's literally the OG and the most quoted man in marketing. And I wrote for his No BS marketing letter, if you've subscribed to that, for 3 years straight, reaching thousands of business owners. I've wrote a bunch of books on the subject. These are my 2 most popular ones and the ones that really give you the essence of what I have to share with you and teach. I host radio here in Chicago, where it's a balmy 50 degrees and raining today here. And after coming back from Miami and Orlando, going from 97 to 50, wow. I got to meet a lot of really cool business celebrities and personalities along my journey. So that's been great too. And I get to speak and share my message and hopefully help as many business owners as I can when I speak around the country and around the world on marketing and branding. I run Imperial Kickboxing, which I took this brand from 0 to thousands of fans and followers at our jam-packed events, just on the power of branding. And I only share this to illustrate that what I share with you is applicable to any field you want to apply it to. Some random weird facts about me. I'm launching a brand with Ricardo Lamas, UFC fighter, called Strikekinetics. And if you remember Tybo with Billy Blanks, and you know Zumba, of course, we're following in that model, that business model. So launching that new program. More random facts about me. I'm from Chicago. I got to work. I had the honor of working for the late, great Walter Payton, running his string of nightclubs here, hiring and training the DJs. I'm famous for house music, being from Chicago again. If you look me up, and it looks a little weird because you're like, who's this guy? There's a bunch of stuff about house music in Chicago. I owned House Nation Records back in the 80s. See how old I am? And I coach fighters at the UFC gym. And my favorite TV show is infomercials. So that's kind of weird, right? Typical marketer. Who else has a veggie bullet? Type it in the chat. Because sometimes it's only me. I know that commercial hasn't run in a while, the infomercial, but this thing's been bulletproof, and I use it every single week here to prep the veggies. My company, I've helped over 800 personal brands get launched or rebrand their businesses, and we start with their signature book. So I've helped over 800. I work with about 60 per year on that. So now that you know where I come from, and my background is in branding and direct response marketing, for once and for all, I demystified it in my book. I wanted to to unblur the lines between branding and marketing so you see how they work together. So let's get right into it. Part one, why branding fails. Here's how to avoid these traps. I promised that to tell you about a multi-billion-dollar brand that was on the brink of failure. And that brand I want to share with you is the Ultimate Fighting Championship. Do we have any UFC fans in the audience today? UFC started in 1993. That was their first pay-per-view, and I bought it for a whopping, try to guess how much it was back then. $14.95 was a expensive pay-per-view back then, but it was very niched. It was for martial artists. The people really who cared back then were people that were studying karate and martial artists, taekwondo. And since I was a lifelong martial artist, that fascinated me because they really got me when they said, which martial art is the best in the world? Who can beat who? We wanted to know. So that was the appeal of the UFC at the time. Now, by 2001, the UFC was on the brink of bankruptcy. They were getting banned in cities across the country, and they didn't know which direction to go. So they ended up selling the business. Two guys, casino guys from Vegas, the Fertitta brothers, bought it for a measly, and this is all relative, of course, $2 million. And at the end of the day, they really didn't buy any assets. People said, what are you buying here? If you don't have any events, what are you buying? What they bought was literally the name UFC and just a handful of contracts they had with fighters. They didn't even have any events scheduled. So, but the Fertitta brothers, they wisely thought, you know what? Those three letters, UFC, is going to be what people know, and they're going to know to love in the future. And that was essentially the brand that they bought. Now, as they went on, to give you, cut edit to later, the UFC became the fastest growing brand in the mid 2000s. We're going to talk about that. And now they're valued at about $11 billion by themselves, and they merged with a larger company. So the question is, how did they do it? How did they go from almost going bankrupt and failing to becoming valued at almost 11 billion today? And of course, I'd imagine you guys know the name. It's a household name now because it was the fastest growing sport. We're going to discuss that it had all to do with one mistake they made in their branding that they were able to fix, and you could avoid it, and you can benefit from it in improving your own branding in this presentation. So more to follow on that. Herein lies the problem when it comes to marketing and branding. You guys all started your businesses because you have a passion for what it is that you do, or you're really great at serving your customer or your client in any field, whether you're an accountant, whether you're a financial advisor, or if you have a brick and mortar, maybe a health and wellness or a fitness business. That's your passion. Well, when you opened up shop, oftentimes you say, okay, now that I'm open, I got to get some customers or clients in here. How do we do it? That's because marketing and branding become an afterthought. That's the biggest problem I see, because we know from being in the marketing and branding world that is a whole nother career. And you're not expected to know this stuff when you got your education and your certification for what it is that you do. But we know the problem is how to get a client. Now, if you ever went to Google and said, what kind of marketing is there? How do you do marketing? Look at what shows up. Types of marketing, dozens and dozens of different things: social media, influencer, video, brand, inbound, outbound, direct marketing, direct mail. Confusion, utter confusion. And if you're not really grounded in marketing and branding, you don't know where to start or what to bother with, what not to bother with, what's relevant for you. And I'm hoping at the end of this presentation, you're going to get a better grasp on where to start with that. But let's keep going. I want you to understand, though, in essence, all of these things you see, email, content, video, influencer, these are actually only channels. It's really about two things. It's about who is it that you serve and what message, what clear message or offer are you giving those people? And all of this you see on the screen here are just different ways, modalities in which to reach them. So that's wherein lies the confusion. We're going to get that simplified and clarified for you today. Starting with a couple quick definitions. Definition of a brand, according to the AMA. Brand's a distinctive feature like a name, term, design, or symbol that identifies goods or services. Here's what I say the definition of a brand is. It's the perception held in the mind of your market. That's people's impression of you. And the act of branding, the verb, it's the deliberate act of planting those seeds to fuel that perception. It's very similar to when you start your first day of school or enter a room of complete strangers. How is it that you dress? What's the aura that you put out there without people ever knowing your name or knowing who you are? What's the impression you're going to make? That's only a piece of it, the first impression. But then there's so much more. And we're deliberately wanting to plant those seeds for the perception that you want to have folks have about your brand. Definition of marketing now, because it's a totally different thing. Marketing is separate. According to the AMA, marketing is the activity, set of institutions, processes for creating, communicating, delivering, and exchanging offerings that have value for customers, clients, partners, and society at large. Wow, that's a mouthful. What I really say about marketing, what's my definition of marketing? It's everything that you do that gets people to check you out, that gets prospects in front of you that are interested in what it is that you do. And when you think of marketing, everything is marketing. Your employees are marketing. Anybody that interacts with your audience, they end up being marketing. That's why Disney is so smart. They train their staff, even if they're in the janitorial department, they train them. If you run into a guest and they ask you a question, they train them on how to interact with their guests. That's also why when the park closes every night, they refresh everything. They repaint the poles because that's marketing. When people see it and see how impeccably clean the park is, they spread the word. The word spreads and their fan base grows. And that's all marketing. So everything's marketing. Now, here's the 5 biggest branding and marketing traps that I want to help you avoid. In no particular order. Number 1, though, blindly copying ads without knowing the success of the ads. Again, if you just went into business and you're like, gosh, I got to write an ad to drive some traffic in here and get some customers and clients. Don't just copy what you see other people doing and competitors, because you don't know if the ads that you're copying, whose homework are you copying? You don't know if they have any success or not. If you really need to find a clue on that, see how long they've been running that particular ad, because if they have been running it for years and years, it's more likely that it's successful because they wouldn't be pouring so much money into it. So blindly copying ads is one thing I see a lot. That's a huge mistake. Number 2, copying a lead generation ad. I want you to understand this really quickly. It doesn't apply to everybody, but you ever see those infomercials where they're advertising, say, a book for $19.99 or $29.99, and you think, oh, you know what? That person's getting rich off of selling $29 books. Well, nay. The reality behind that is there's a business behind that book. Oftentimes, that $29 purchase is only meant to really get you started, because they're selling you something on the back end, which could be a high ticket, multi-$1,000 thing. Or look at Proactive Acne Care. They get you for $39.95 for the first bottle of stuff. But did you know that they lose an average of $180 per person that buys that $39 bottle? So they're in arrears for several months until your subscription catches up. I want you to just be aware of that, so you know whose homework you're copying and understanding the economics behind what they're doing. But if you can get the first purchase to pay for your advertising, that's marketing utopia right there. Number 3, copying established brands. We're going to talk about this a bunch, because in my adventures in marketing, the biggest mistake I see a lot of colleagues make is they say, oh, I just got a business going. I got a logo and I got to come up with a tagline like Nike, like just do it. And therefore, I'm going to be successful because look at how successful Nike is. What they're not seeing is how many years, decades did it take to really make that impression and burn that impression in the mind of the consumer, that the words just do it associate with Nike. And we all know that that's a sports brand. Well, huge mistake, because in the early days, they didn't just use Just Do It. Now you're going to see some examples of how they built that brand and made that impression in the mind. But it's really about how do you enter the mind of your consumer. They took millions and billions of dollars to get it to where they now can just be like, oh, just do it. Let's put it on a shirt and everybody knows what it is. So don't copy established brands. If you're yet to be established and known, you need to start to create a message for yourself, which is what we're going to share today. Number 4, falling victim to predatory salespeople. They don't mean bad. But salespeople that are selling you advertising in certain media, they're just trying to sell their space. But how do you know? They're not necessarily marketing and sales professionals or experts in branding and marketing. How do you know that what they're selling you is the right channel for your message to reach your audience? That takes a lot more work. So don't just, fall for buying any ad that's being offered to you. And number 5, big mistake, bad messaging. Bad messaging can be product or service focused, talking about your stuff, talking about what people really want is they want to know how it benefits them. At the end of the day, people buy things or hire people that are going to help them survive or help them thrive. That's what they're looking for. And anything else, they don't care about the kilowatts or whatever the actual nitty gritty of the product is until they know how it benefits them. And we're going to show you some of the big mistakes in action throughout this. Now, I started by explaining there's 2 types of marketing that are distinctly different. One is brand marketing. Brand marketing is the kind of awareness marketing that lets the world know that you exist. It's there to build like a loyalty over time, and it's there to maybe entertain you and create humor, so like some of the insurance commercials you see today. But then there's another type of marketing, which is direct response marketing. And that's all about creating action. And that's about creating cash flow. So brand marketing, first of all, that's building long-term brand awareness and loyalty, and direct response, eliciting immediate response. And immediate response could be one of 2 things. It could be selling something, maybe selling the first thing you have to offer, your loss leader even, or just purchasing the most popular product in your line to get people on the bus, so to speak, so that you can then cross-sell and start to sell all the other products that you offer and services. Or it could be to elicit a response just to build a list. It could be an exchange offer like, hey, enter your email and I'm going to give you this free report. That's another list building. That's direct response. Anything that's making an offer and asking for an immediate response. So let's talk about, let's share a brand marketing example. We were talking about Nike and their posters now, anything they do. Here's an early poster that said, just do it. Now, I mentioned the cons of doing branding with taglines, and that's why taglines can be real cringy and not something to focus on in the early days, because it requires massive investment over time in order to position that brand indelibly in the hearts and the minds of your consumer. And that won't help you and move the needle in sales until that brand gets established. Not saying not to do it or to throw it away, but it has to take a back seat to direct sales, direct response. Here's some examples of direct response marketing. The pros. You could bring in buyers and revenue first right away. This is what I want you to do is building the buyers, getting that customer. Now, the cons, they can be a little ugly and cheesy because they're really verbal branding. This is messaging. This is like, how do you get into the mind of who it is that you want to reach? But these are examples of some of the most popular ads and the most successful in history. The exciting ant farm, and the ad on the right is super famous for selling a home study course on playing the piano. They laughed when I sat down at the piano, but when I started to play, and look at that long copy. A big mistake. You'll hear a lot of friends and family, they mean well, but they might say, who's going to read any of that stuff? And that's probably because they aren't your customer. They didn't want to learn how to play the piano. But I'll tell you what, if you wanted to learn how to play the piano and you didn't know where to start and you were really, really interested, you would read every single word. So there's a lesson right there. Do not write ads for non-buyers. Write for the buyers. And who cares what anybody else thinks, because they weren't going to buy from you anyway. So why would you want to please somebody that's just going to be like, oh, that ad's a lot prettier. Thank you for showing it to me. I'm still not buying. That's an incredible waste. Write for the buyers. Remember this ad. See, do you notice something? Here's another thing that's kind of cool about this. Who bought this? Who joined the Columbia Records and Tapes Club? See, I'm aging myself again. 13 records or tapes for $1. Any 7 records or tape for a penny. Notice that the brand of Columbia Records is nowhere on here. And that's because they weren't established and it was not important to make the sale. They wanted to get the customer first. And then they start sending you the Columbia this, Columbia that. But what's important is the brand takes a back seat to getting a customer. So which do you do first, branding or marketing? By now, it's kind of a rhetorical question, right? We prioritize the marketing to get the customer, and then the customer helps to build your brand. Because when you become a fan of something, you're like, wow, this is tremendous. This is incredible. I love it. Now you'll start wearing the Columbia Records Club t-shirts, you see? So now let's go back and look at the UFC. What was the mistake that plagued the UFC and what caused their failure? It was bad messaging. That was that pitfall number 5. When they first started, remember what got me in and to buy that first pay-per-view? It was, which martial art is best? Who's going to beat who? Then the other message they put out, there are no rules. It gave you an impression in your mind that they're going to lock 2 people in a cage with no time limit and one person's going to walk out of there. It's like Gladiator, and you're imagining like teeth flying and all this like brutality. But it's like what we call car crash marketing or advertising. People want to see what's going to happen, and that's the appeal of the thing. So their appeal was pretty much brutality, violence. It was a freak show, or what I call a spectacle, a spectacle like a car crash. People just want to see what's going to happen. But you and I know that only takes you so far. That's the problem with that kind of messaging, and it traps you. And in their case, it got them attacked because you saw how all the politicians were banning the UFC, and that's what was causing their downfall. So how did they fix it? What they did is they fixed the messaging. This is how they did it. They established rules and they added a timer. Then they added weight classes. Before, it was like anybody can fight anybody. You'd see a 400-pound sumo wrestler fighting a 145-pound Muay Thai fighter. And it was interesting to look at. Ridiculous, though, in the outcome. And it was just a spectacle again. But over time, people were like, okay, we know what's going to happen here. Then they really gambled the most. They took their last $10 million, relatively again, and they put it down on their own produced and funded TV show on Spike TV called The Ultimate Fighter TV show. And that's what turned it around for everybody. Because all of a sudden, instead of just karate students in this little small niche of martial arts enthusiasts seeing it, this was on cable television for the world to see. And people were like, what is that? They'd stop on the channel. They'd start telling each other about it. But here's what they did the most. They glorified the athletes on the show. The show was all about putting the fighters in a house where they trained together, and there was an ultimate competition at the end to see who was going to win a contract with the UFC. So they glorified the athletes, talked about their trials and tribulations. They made them real people, not just a freak show, or spectacle at the circus. They emphasized the sport. So you see what they did there. At the end of the day, they changed the impression, or what we call the appeal, in the mind of the consumer. They turned spectacle into sport. That's the one word change. So my challenge to you is, in your business, what's the impression? What's the one word impression, if you were to describe your business, that your audience is taking away from you? What are you about? And is it the right impression that you're making? In Action Brand, we call that the DNA. And we're going to talk about how to find that for your own business. So the result with the UFC, 2016, they sold it for $4 billion. That's billion for a B. So not a bad investment there. And today it's worth over $12 billion by itself. And they merged with WWE. So together they formed a $21 billion company with them. All because the appeal stuck and it grew because people really wanted that sport. So part 2. Action Brand Solution. We're going to show you the formula now, how to grow your business into a powerhouse brand that everybody loves. Here's my DNA formula. This is what I want to teach you to find out what that message is for your business. DNA stands for distinction of novel appeal. What is your distinction and what's unique about you? That's your appeal. So let's look at this Venn diagram here. In the distinction circle, you can do this exercise on a pad of paper. You make a list of all your distinctions. That is everything that you are good and great at and how you serve your client and customer. This means your education, your certifications. What are you best at? What are you award winning at? What are you trained to do? Write it all down there. On the novel side, If you look at your company, your work compared to other people in your field, if you're a financial advisor, other financial advisors you look at, what do you do that's a little bit different that you can call your own? That what, in other words, what is novel about your work and how you serve your audience? It could be in the speed that you do it, in the way that you do it. It could be in the order that you do it. I always say, because, a big misconception, people say, well, I'm a financial advisor, but so are thousands of other people. We all got the same education. We all do the same thing. So they're describing a commodity, right? But I always remind you that you do it a little bit different because of your upbringing, experience, and background. And my expression for that is the notes were already there before Beethoven came along. So how is it that you do things a little bit differently? So make that list in another column of what's novel about what it is that you do. Now, down at the appealing part, make a third list. What keeps your audience up at night? What is important to them? What is actually appealing to them? And if you can find an intersection between your distinctions, what you do differently, and what the audience really wants, somewhere in there is that big idea for you and the appeal that you could put out to the world. That's the DNA formula. Let me know if I explained that well. If you had any questions about it, make sure to type them in. I'm going to give you an example here. One of my clients, Jane McQuillan, she's now the best-selling author of The Value Journey. We helped her launch that book last year. Now, her company was called Journey Consulting. She's an exit planning advisor, a CEPA, who helps businesses prepare their businesses to sell at maximum value. Now, her background is she was a CPA. So she's a real numbers person. And she said, well, she wanted to really lead her field, get more speaking engagements and reach more people. So I asked her, Jane, we're trying to find the title for her book. I said, how do you do your work? She said, well, I'm an exit planning advisor. So we just put them through the exit planning process. That's very generic. That's what everybody does. But I said, I'm sure you do things differently. She said, yeah, I'm a CPA. So we do this process differently and this process like this. I said, well, guess what, Jane? You have your own system. And this is now your formula. You own it. It is now your brand. And you're the only person that can claim this. And we're going to call it the value journey because you help people increase their values. And your company's called Journey Consulting. So now she's world renowned and known as the author and the creator of the value journey, so much so that even other exit planners are asking to license her brand, and they use her book to help grow their practices. How would you like your competitors using your book to grow their businesses? Who is getting who's getting glorified there in that case? And you're still helping a lot of people. So think about that as a lesson. Action brand. What this means, and this is what I want to share. There's a meaning behind this title. It means acquiring customers and clients through irresistible offers now. Very deliberate on action. It worked out as the right acronym. Now, the word brand, what does that mean? Broad recognition of affinity and novel distinction. How did that work out? And notice action is before brand, because in my messaging, what I always tell you guys, and I always beat it like a drum, is the direct response, the action is more important, and brand always takes a backseat to that. Just wanted to share that with you because this is what I want for you. When you come up with your methodology and your system, this could inform the way you title your book, for example, or how you message or how you create your brand and your message to the world. So it's all about being different. Let's go into the 3 immutable laws of action brand marketing. Rule number 1, clarity over cleverness. I want you to be clear with your message and talk about what problem do you solve for that audience. And you're going to be sending direct response offers to audiences to grab attention, collect leads, gain buyers so you could snowball your cash flow. Examples. We talked about Nike a whole bunch, so I'm going to stick with this for a minute. On the right there, you see what we recognize as just do it. The early days when nobody knew what that was. They're like, what's that little swooshy thing? Okay. Nobody recognized Nike was a Greek god of something. So there was no recognition in the mind, kind of like Amazon. What do they mean by Amazon? It's a huge river, right? Look at the verbal branding in that early ad. There is no finish line. All the language talks about, like, if you have a body, you are an athlete. Essentially, they're trying to express the idea that we help you win, and not just polished professional athletes. We help the everyday person win. So that is for you. And over millions and billions of dollars of advertising investment, we now know it as Just Do It. Now, you and I didn't have the luxury of that budget. That's why I emphasize don't copy people's homework until you understand the history of it. Next one, look at McDonald's on the right. That's how we know them, right? I'm loving it. Which, by the way, on the side, that's a branding faux pas. You're not supposed to tell people how they should feel about it, about you. Like, I'm loving it. That's not cool. But look at an early ad. Notice a couple things here. Those hamburgers at McDonald's. To make it more so, order a McDonald's cheeseburger, both made with pure fresh beef and served on toasty buns. Who's hungry? Okay. Look for the golden arches, McDonald's. Notice a couple things there. They really got you understanding what they're all about, the burgers and the food and how delicious it is. And what took a back seat? Notice the logo. Where is it? It's not at the top of the ad where most people would think to put it. It's at the bottom, because what was more important, nobody knew McDonald's at the time when they started. So they're branding the food in the mind. And then they started, and now look how sloppy they got. Oh, everybody knows who we are. We'll just put I'm loving it. And then it makes you hungry. It's a Pavlov's dog, right? Here's another example. MasterCard, which was called Master Charge before, right? On the right, take a look. Sharing your second love with your first. Priceless. See, sloppy, because everyone already knows what they are. They don't need to do much except show up. But in the early days, did you know there was a time where people didn't know what a credit card was? So look what they had to do. I carry cloud. Cloud gives you acceptance. Cloud is power. That's Master Charge. They actually were teaching the verbal branding and educating the consumer. And then the brand took a back seat. So that's another example there. Number two, brand takes a back seat to the headline. You're going to send branded messages and swag only after you gain that customer fan, because people want to share something that they're proud of. Number two, another example here. Look, it's safe. It's not really money until I decide to use it. Again, for Bank Americard, there was a time people didn't even know what a credit card was. So it took a lot more education-based marketing, what we call EBM, to create that market. So big lesson. Think of whose homework you're copying. Number three, immutable law. You'll optimize the flywheel. You're going to start creating a family of ads and assets to achieve maximum growth. What that means is you take an ad. If it does really well, on the next one, you try to beat it. You don't necessarily change your ads all the time, because if it's working, you keep it going. But you try to see if you can beat it. That's called beat the control. If the next one beats the first ad, it doesn't mean you throw it away, but maybe you rotate it until it tires and then bring the other one back. Just, you should have a family of ads with different appeals. Now, part three, let's get right into it. I'm going to give you, who wants to know their personalized action plan? This is the piece that I think everybody needs, because they don't know where to start with their branding, and they're being pulled in so many different directions by, frankly, so many different salespeople trying to sell them something. Here's the blueprint to be the go-to leader in your market. Action brand principle here. Every business should be a media company, and every founder should be a creator. What do I mean by that? Every business should be a media company. Back in the days, we used to have to spend a ton of money to advertise our businesses, whether it's television, radio. There was no internet back then, so it was a ton of money. But today, we have the luxury of social media and a lot of platforms where we can talk and be seen every single day for like no cost except your time and investment in the creative. So in order to stay top of mind, you just need to communicate with people answers to their problems. So that essentially makes you a media company, like being a newspaper, for example. And when I say every founder should be a creator, people today connect with the founder of companies. That's why when I say Microsoft, who do you think of? Bill Gates. When I say Apple, is there somebody you think of? The late Steve Jobs. When I say love him or hate him, when I say Tesla, who do you think of? Notice that the biggest companies in the world, the ones that got the fastest acceleration of success and traction, it's because they're attached to a luminary or a founder. That person's a creator. They were outspoken. They shared their ideas. They gave people the answers to their problems. That's why I say every founder should be a creator. because people seek answers, not advertising. Therefore, your opportunity to stand out is to consistently offer answers with your content marketing. So now here's a list of your prime positioning portfolio assets. These are all the things you can focus on. And by the way, when I give you the list of these top, you don't have to do all of them. Do what is most comfortable for you until you master it, and then add another channel. So that's what I want you to think of when you do this, so you're not pulled in lots of directions. In order, number 7, print media. Do you have a newsletter for your business? That's probably the best example of how do you stay top of mind with your customer base, whether it's in print. At minimum, do an email newsletter to regularly touch base with your customers, because then you can make offers. If you're a restaurant, you can offer coupons occasionally. Get people to see you at least on a weekly basis on a minimum. People were doing blogging. That's not as popular today, but email newsletters has taken over. That's and print media. I prefer print. If you can do both, fantastic. Number 6, a podcast. If you're good at talking, if that's your jam, and it's easy, it comes easier to you than writing, then by all means, a podcast that can get you unlimited. And the platforms are free or low or no cost for you to create podcasts. Number 5, a YouTube channel. Today, YouTube, we all know this hasn't changed over the years. This is the second largest search engine on the web, next to Google, is YouTube. People there type in questions to their problems and they're looking for answers. You show up with your content. That's a really great way of discovery. Number 4, become a subject matter expert in your topic so you can be a guest on other people's radio shows, TV shows, and podcasts, even local events. Subject matter expert. And of course, an advantage you'll have is by being an author, because hosts, inside secret, when we do radio, I'm always looking for somebody that has a book, because it makes me look better as the host, saying I'm bringing on an author, not just an everyday person that has a business card, but this is a person that wrote the book on the topic. Speaking, number 3, and this is actually the best way to spread the word about what it is that you do, and especially if you have a book, it's the number one way to promote your book is by doing speaking. That's why I do speaking tours myself. Number 2, live events. You see how we're touching all the different modalities: print, internet, in person. Live events is a fantastic way. You can do an annual conference for your folks. And oh, by the way, when it comes to live events, another really cool one, and this works for any type of business, even brick and mortar. I'm helping my local gym here, the UFC gym, customer, client, and in their case, gym member appreciation parties annually, where you allow them to come in to celebrate and rent a bunch of bounce houses, put them in the parking lot, do a little festival, a party, and then have your current member base give them passes for a friend, bring a friend, a neighbor. That's an ultimate referral source, is creating at least at a minimum an annual member, customer, client appreciation party. The number one tool you start with is your signature book, for all the reasons that I've been sharing with you today. It's the number one way I get the message out for Action Brand Marketing, my book, and how I get to meet wonderful folks like you and being able to help people is because I'm very clear in what I'm about and who I serve. So, signature book. Quick examples of some businesses that were built by a book: Dale Carnegie Training, Leadership and Communication and Sales Training. That was built on that book, How to Win Friends and Influence People. Are they still sharing that book today? Because I'll tell you, there's not a person in the world that didn't know what that book was when I was growing up. And that was like the number one way to learn how to speak and how to communicate and sell. So that built a fortune. Now, Anthony Robbins, who doesn't know Tony Robbins here? Okay. Powerhouse of a brand. And his first book was Personal Power. And then his follow-up book that really skyrocketed was Unlimited Power and Awaken the Giant Within. You see what happens here is these titles they tell the world what you're about and who you are and who you serve. So he's grown he owns islands now as a result of being just a giant as a personal development and coaching leader, doing seminars and training for that. Dave Ramsey, see, in the financial space, as a financial speaker in financial services, the books that he's known for, Financial Peace and The Total Money Makeover. Notice whether your picture's on the cover or on the back. I prefer it on the back personally. It's a little bit more subtle and humble, and people that want to know who read something, they're going to look at you. And unless you're really a speaker by profession and you're trying to brand your image because you talk on the stage, I recommend putting your photo on the back to be more humble until you get to become Tony Robbins. Then you could perhaps move your picture to the front of the cover. But this is, again, verbal branding first. Financial Peace. Those are headlines. What are you about? What's your book about? But before your brand takes a back seat to the message. Here in Chicagoland area, we have Jeffrey Leving. He runs ads all the time. Dad's Rights. So he wrote the book on father's rights. Here are examples from my clients. And I want to share with you, here's Businesses Built by a Book. Adrienne Hines on the left there. We just published that, and it's actually climbing the charts today, and I'm excited to see where she's at, because I think we were at number 40 in the charts, and she could be we're aiming for number 1, of course. She came to me with the book. She has a huge TikTok channel called The Ladylike Lawyer, and she specializes in bankruptcy. So she wanted to write a book, and originally the title was just Debt Relief with Dignity, because she's all about, really about debt relief without embarrassment or shame. So she had Debt Relief with Dignity. I said, that's really great. So it's clear, but it's plain. I said, Adrienne, if you want to be known for something, let's be known for something. And as in our conversations, learning and helping her with her brand, she was telling me what it's all about. And she kept saying, bankruptcy isn't what people think. It's not an embarrassing situation. There's a lot of myths and misconceptions, but it's really transformative. And you wouldn't believe the magic it can do for you. So I said, there you go. There's your brand. How would you like to be known as the author of Bankruptcy Magic? We did the research, saw nobody owned it. She now owns it. People are going to be kicking themselves. Every bankruptcy attorney in the world is going to be like, man, I wish I had that brand, because that brand creates fascination now. If you're in the financial field and you had a podcast or a TV show, who wouldn't want to have the author of Bankruptcy Magic? Because the first question is going to always automatically be, what's so magical about bankruptcy? That'll tee her up for some fantastic interviews. My client in the middle there, last week, we took his book to number 1, and he's still in like the top 10 in manufacturing. He's a business broker that sells manufacturing businesses. He originally came to me with the subtitle, with How to Unlock the True Value of Your Manufacturing Business Before Selling. It's number 1 common mistake, by the way. Very utilitarian title. They're doing a direct response, which isn't the bad thing. But what I'm saying, when it comes to why I'm Action Brand and I'm different, I have to up level that, because I said, Nick, if I introduced you on my podcast, do I want to say, meet Nick Ferris? He's the author of How to Unlock the True Value of Your Manufacturing Business. Or do you want to be like, make a real impact and say American Made Millions? He's the best-selling author of American Made Millions. Look what else you could do with that brand. He now has a personal brand, not just a book with a title. He's now in the middle of creating his podcast. Look at the title. Guess what? The podcast is named, of course, The American Made Millions Show with Nick Ferris. Everyone's going to want to be part of that if you're in manufacturing. So watch out for him. So those are just a couple of examples. David Parati, Fine Home Contracting. That's actually the name of his company. I asked about that first because I said, hey, if your company's not called like Bert and Ernie and Associates, maybe it's good for the title of the book. Because if it is, like his was, Fine Home Contracting, that's a company name, then when people Google it, they're not only going to see his company, but they're going to see, oh, he wrote a book too, because the Amazon title is going to pop up. That's just a little inside tip for you there, a little pro tip. So now let's talk about creating your signature book, because you really should create this first. And if you've already seen the illustrations there, it's the number 1 business building and brand building tool for any type of business and field. If you could explain what it is that you do, you can lead your field with the book. Reason it's so great, Google did a research study years back about the life cycle of a client. What is the psychology? What gets people to buy and hire you? What makes people comfortable enough to give you money? And what they found was this. They call it their 7-11-4. People have to spend an average of 7 hours getting to know who you are, to get to know and trust you. Over 11 touch points, meaning maybe they read your blog. Maybe they saw you speak somewhere. Maybe they get your emails, 11 touch points across 4 different places. Meaning maybe they saw you in person at a conference speak. Maybe they saw your YouTube channel. Maybe they saw you getting interviewed on a podcast. You see 4 different places, 7, 11, 4. Now, guess what? When somebody gets immersed in your book, how many hours does this knock out? This is a good 3-4 hours with you, getting to get in your brain and getting to build a relationship. I call it artificially inseminating a relationship with you. They get to know you, like you, and trust you. You've heard that expression. I prefer respect, value, and trust you, because getting to like you is a byproduct of respect and value and trust. So here's your top 5 ethical yet unfair advantages as a published author. Because guess what? People, especially in America and around the world, we hold authors in high esteem. Advantage number 1, top dog status, because by all means, you just wrote the book on the subject, making you number 1. Advantage number 2, everyone already expects, if they're working with the author, the person that wrote the book, that they're expecting higher fees. So you could automatically raise your fees from 25% to 50% or more. It also boosts higher demand. There are very few people at the top, and this is why I suggest you go there, because there's less competition. You have how many people in your field that do what it is that you do, but what percentage of them are an author on the subject? That's going to be less than 1% of your field. So now you become a magnet to any TV shows, media appearances. The news wants subject matter experts to comment on things that come up. Every year there's a cycle. Hey, people get married in the spring. Anybody that serves the wedding market can be an expert and show up in the news every new year, okay, and around spring. Advantage number 4, close more deals faster. Because now when people immerse themselves in your book, they're learning from you. You're sharing unselfishly. You're sharing openly. So now at the end, when people are like, what do you think I should do? You're not selling them your product or service now. You're prescribing a solution for people. Huge difference. It's like when you go to the doctor. They're not trying to sell you their surgery or whatever it is. They're prescribing what you need to solve your problem, and you automatically accept that. Advantage 5, ultimate scalability. What I love about books is it allows people, my favorite thing, I talk to people every day that want to get started on their signature books. And the number one favorite thing I hear is, Mark, I read your book and I want to do this, this, and this really helped guide me to this. When can we get started? Literally, they are able to gain my knowledge without me having to repeat or forget to share something. It like sings the song at fever pitch, every time without me having to be there. Ultimate scalability is getting the book out, speaking on the book, getting it in the hands of as many people as you can, and doing book signings. So now, how do you get the book done? Here's how to author a high impact book in 60 to 90 days in your voice without AI, because what's important here is these are personality driven books. They're not generic textbooks that just spit out facts. They share your personal stories. So you have to share those. You don't have to write it. You can talk it with somebody, but don't use AI, because it's not going to know your story and how to share that. So key number 1, magnetic book titles. I told you, your book is your brand. Your book becomes your brand. Here's an example. This is an age-old example. Back in the 80s, Nora Hayden released Astrological Love, and it was an incredible, incredible flop. It went nowhere because nobody knew what Astrological Love was about. So what they did to fix this, and it went on to become a best-selling book, is they fixed the title. They now were more direct. Don't do a clever title, do a clear title. Same book, different title, and it became a bestseller. How to satisfy a woman every time and have her beg for more. So you see what I'm saying? Just more direct. Clarity over cleverness wins the day. So the book idea and how to come up with that title, I shared it with you already. It's the DNA of your business. That's going to help you come up with the big idea that'll inform your brand and what you want to be known for. And there's Jane as the example there again. But what is it that you want to be known for? I have a little title test for you. If you're thinking about a title, I call it the Will It Intro title test. It's a litmus test. Pretend you're being interviewed somewhere, and then they're introducing you. Next up is the best-selling author of blank. Please welcome, and put your name in there. Does it intro well? Does it tell the world what you're about? Does it give you a fascination? Does it make you smile when you hear it? If so, you might be onto a good title. If not, something you might want to work on. I prefer, as you saw in my examples, short 1 to 3 word branding titles, something that you could be known for, like Jane McQuillan. She's the value journey lady. Like Eric Ebron, my author here, he's the highway to skyway leadership guy. By the way, he's came from aerospace and he trains leaders in aerospace and automotive. So I gave him the title Highway to Skyway Leadership. That kind of covers it all right there. And then you let the subtitle clearly express the value that they're going to get from reading the book. What are they going to take? Don't talk about you again or your processor or whatever it is. Talk about the transformation that they're going to get from reading your book. Again, the examples: Bankruptcy Magic, American Made Millions, Boot Suits and Startups. What do you think that's about? Building a business while in uniform. That would 2 or 3 weeks ago, that one hit #1 in military policy. Key #2 to creating your book: I call this memorialize your magic, branding yourself in your system. I showed you my acronyms for action. And when I teach it, I have 6 steps that I teach. And fortunately, it worked with act, now, audience, channel, transaction, nurture, offer, wow. I teach the 6 steps with my acronym and it brands me. People in the world, this is how I'm going to be known. It's what do you want to be known for? Key #3, outlining your book. Biggest mistake I ever see people make is they start writing a book with no direction and they end up throwing it away, crumpling it up, starting over and over, never getting the book done. You got to get your outline done first and stick to it. Now, there's a million different formulas in how to get a book outlined, but I'm going to share my most favorite way: 3 parts, because people can grasp things in threes much easier, kind of like before, during, after. And then take 3 chapters within each part to explain things. Like, for example, in the fitness thing, diet, exercise, and lifestyle. For the diet section, it could be what to eat, when to eat, and recipes. Exercise, strength, cardio, equipment. Lifestyle, rest, work, travel. See that? So can you see yourself doing this now? Because making it simple. And of course, that's my favorite formula, and it makes terrific books. Key #4, talk your book, as I mentioned. Record it. If you can talk for 30 minutes about the topic, you'll get about a 2,500 word chapter. And guess what? 10 of those, that's 25,000 words. And you're within 100 to 150 pages. Key #5, professionally publish it. Make sure your cover is on brand with the message you want to put out there, matching your style. And make sure, pro tip, make sure your inside is also designed well. So it's professionally designed and published, which will separate you from the self-published world. 7 quick ways to use your book once you have it to build your brand. Put it in your signature line. Everyone in the world's going to see it every time you send an email. Just put Get Mark's books on Amazon like I do. That's subtly letting people know you're an author. Use it on your website to collect leads. Get media attention. Send it to all your local medias at the time of year before the time of year where you know that there's attention in your topic. Ultimate referral tool. Get your book out to your past and present clients and give them extras so they can share it with people. Get it to a Trojan horse. Get it to organizations that can have you in as a speaker. When you're promoting a book, you're less threatening to them. They don't think you're trying to sell them something. You're just wanting to spread the word and help people with your book. Get cooperation from referral partners. Here's a really cool, sneaky, ethical trick. If you can interview your referral partner in your book and honor them with that, you think they'd be more likely to help you distribute your book and pass it out at their office too. And #7, create monthly events. If you're a financial advisor, I help a ton of them turn their dinner seminars into evening with the author. That simple change increases 45% or more the attendance of those events. When you do your author page, what you're going to see is it really, you become a Google darling. People Google your name. Your author page becomes a knowledge panel. It'll show up higher than your own LinkedIn. And my favorite part about being an Amazon author, you get author copies and you pay the print price only. This is a 130-page book, $2.63. So you don't have to buy your own books at retail. So my final thought for you is take the time to plan how you're going to get your customers and what you want to be known for. And then those customers will build your brand. So I know we covered a ton today. If you have questions, remember, I've helped over 800 people launch their brands. And I'm offering you a free brandstorming session. It could be for your brand or for your book. And oftentimes there's an interlap of both. So hit that QR code or go to booksgrowbusiness.com. My calendar link's there. I'm offering a complimentary 20-minute brandstorming session with you where I'll learn about your work, answer any questions you might have about your brand, and then give you the feedback that you want or need to get you launched. Type in any questions that you might have because we're coming right up on the hour and I don't want to go over too much. And I know we promised you an hour. You're welcome to stay a little bit longer if you have any questions for me. I'm happy to stay to answer everyone's questions. But let's see. But go ahead and type them into the chat.
Yes, thank you so much, Mark, for joining us today and taking the time to share your knowledge with us. That
Thanks,
was an
Ingla.
excellent presentation. Again, if you guys don't have the time and you guys need to leave, you guys can do so. But if you guys have questions, you guys can go ahead and ask them. I put in the chat box to access the recording as well as to reach your local SBDC if you guys have any more questions. Once again, thank you, Mark, for providing us with great information during today's session. I would like to thank you all to all of our attendees for taking part in today's session. We kindly ask that attendees complete a short survey that will auto-populate at the end of the meeting. Your feedback is essential in the process of planning future events and improving our training program overall. I see that there's no questions.
I hope that means that I explained it well because we've got everybody that stuck around. So I appreciate that. How did we do? Any comments are welcome too. Thanks, Elizabeth. Appreciate it. Yeah, let me know if you guys have any questions about your own brands. Hit that brandstorming session link because I'd love to work with you personally, one-on-one, no obligation. It's complimentary. It's just a way that I get to spread the word about my work and meet some great business owners at the same time.
Yeah. Once again, thank you, Mark, for providing us with that great information. And we hope to see you soon. I hope everyone has a good day. We're going to go ahead and end the session today.
Thanks so much, everybody.
Thank you. Have a good one. Bye-bye.